the DA got dissolved, the talent pools got stretched out a lot. So you see clubs like Crossfire should be in MLS Next if that's supposed to be the highest level, but they're playing ECNL. Just because you're playing MLS Next doesn't automatically mean that you can play Division 1.
I want to play college soccer. What's the first step? What do I need to do?
Getting a professional highlight video done, professional graphics, get a resume done either by somebody or yourself. Take the time to make it look really professional. That's what gets you in the door with the coaches most of the time. Something that comes along with that is immediately going to your connections.
How do you figure out who your connections and your network is?
The people at the club. So technical director, your current coach, your former coach, scheduling a meeting with the highest director that you can find, introducing yourself.
So Angelo, what's your definition of success as a footballer?
It's a great question. I think it's changed a lot over time. I think growing up it was like hitting a certain level, trying to play in certain stadiums, certain countries. But I think as time has gone on, the success for me is being able to, have those experiences and like being open to whatever the game brings to you, which is a bit, cliche. But I think from what I've learned over time is that you really can't control what the game's going to throw to you. Like some of the players I've played with and talent I've seen, it doesn't always correlate to the highest levels. But the stuff that I really take away from it is, the experiences I have on away trips, the relationships I build, the conversations in the bus, stuff like that. And then I think also just the experience of playing in the game, like being able to be fully immersed in a game. That's like the most gratifying experience, I think, to me. So that's kind of like what I try to measure it by. But obviously it'll come in, you'll say, oh, I want to play in that stadium, play in this league. But trying to be as open to whatever the game brings to you, because a lot of it's out of your control.
So right now you're playing for Miami FC in the USL Championship. For someone that doesn't understand the level or doesn't understand kind of the landscape of where you're at right now, how would you explain to the average person the level of Miami FC USL Championship? Yeah,
so USL Championships in the second tier on the US Soccer Professional Pyramid. Underneath the MLS, beneath the MLS, you have USL Championship in the second tier. Third tier is USL 1, NISA, MLS Next Pro. And then underneath that is USL 2 and PSL. So it's a fully professional league. Obviously, you're not playing against the likes of Inter Miami, Orlando City, but you're playing against teams like Louisville. Miami's, got a really rich history as well with, Nesta and Maldini being, some of the first people that worked in the club and created the club. So there's definitely a lot of soccer heritage as well in USL.
Because I feel like you're a bit of a journeyman with your career, kind of your story.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I don't know, I think because we got connected through someone in Bali, right? Was it through... What's his name? Jose Santos?
Yes, it was through Santos.
That was it. Yeah. Because we got connected through him, and then I was doing a bit of research, and then I saw you followed one of my friends, Dario, on Instagram, and then you were in Spain.
Yes.
And then we were talking a bit, you were in England. When did you start to think you wanted to be a professional footballer?
Yeah, well, I think when I was 11, probably like 10 or 11, I think I played all the sports up to that point, and then I met a coach named Stuart Thornton. He's an English guy, had come over to Seattle, coaching international soccer camps, and just like being able to play with him. He had a street football clinic in Seattle where you kind of take it away from the organized structure and just going out and playing, and you're playing against guys who are playing pro versus guys that are ECNL and kids who don't even have clubs. So it's like just this like really, really eclectic group of people, and that's where I just really started just loving the game. And I think from there, seeing the football culture as well, seeing how much he loved Arsenal. There was a couple of Irish coaches as well. The guy who started a club called Seattle Celtic in Seattle named Kevin Walsh loved Everton, so that's how Everton became my club. So I think it was just like the combination of meeting those figures in my life and then just like learning more about the game. It just, completely took over everything.
And so you grew up in Seattle and then you decided to go internationally. At what age did you first go internationally?
Yeah, so I played at Seattle United, and the Blue Arrows were two like local clubs there. And then when I was 11, I got I guess you could say scouted by Crossfire Premier, which is a club that plays in ECNL, but they used to be in the DA, coached by Bernie James, who's been coached there for a long time. And they picked me up because there was a Inter Milan camp. They used to have this thing with Inter Milan, and they wanted me to go train at Inter Milan, but they're like, if you go to Inter Milan, you need to come join Crossfire. So obviously, for an opportunity to go to Inter Milan, I gladly joined Crossfire. And then so I went over to Inter Milan for a week, came back, and then I was at Crossfire for the rest of my youth career in Seattle. When I was 16, I got cut from the top team. I was a really late bloomer, but also just looking back, I just wasn't, that was my excuse at the time, but I think I just wasn't able to figure out a way to make it work with the skill set I had at the time. And then there was an opportunity to go play at a program called EduKick Spain, which is no longer around anymore. There was a player who was at the Sounders who had done it before me, and he had gone to the same high school as me, and that's kind of what made me try to give that a go. So I went to Madrid. I lived in Madrid for a year, and then I came back, tore my ACL at an ID camp at Notre Dame, and then, I finished my club career out at Crossfire that last senior year.
Yeah, right.
Not playing on the top team, playing on the level below the academy.
So how was so first off, when you went to Spain at 16, that's a big move. Did you go for 3 months, for 6 months, for a year?
I went for a year.
Wow. How was that at 16?
It was probably one of the best experiences I've ever done in my life. So I'm always...
Why?
Well, so I think the biggest thing was being away from home. You have to learn how to, be a man, be an adult, take care of your laundry, cook, clean.
But why was that good for you? Because there might be some players listening. Because, for example, we have players that are 18 that go away and they're nervous. Yeah. And then there's other players like you that are like, oh, I love that. I can't wait. Like, what was exciting for you about that? And were you homesick, or how did you deal with that?
Well, I was definitely nervous. So, like, the opportunity came up. I was like, oh, I got to go for it. And then, obviously, you start thinking, oh, I'm going to be away from my family, do all this stuff. But at the time, it was like anything I could do to progress my football career, become a better player, I was all in on. And I, really felt like that was the right move at the time. And so when I got there, I was definitely homesick. I didn't speak any Spanish, and I was in Spanish school. So I failed out of my Spanish school. I was the only person that spoke English, and the rest were all just local, like, kids from Madrid.
How did you deal with that?
I mean,
so you went there to study in a school, but you didn't speak Spanish.
Yeah, so it was it was called Colegio Alameda de Osuna. It was like the school they sent me to, and they told us before we went over, oh, it's an international school, and you'll be immersed, and there'll be people.
Did you have a good relationship with the agency or with the school? Or
a great relationship. I just didn't really know that much going in, and because it was someone had done it before me, and I just kind of was like, oh, he did it, so I'm gonna do it. And there was 4 players in the whole program. So it wasn't like I kind of thought it was going to be a team, but it was basically like you train in the morning and you're with the small group with a coach taking you through a session, and then the afternoon you go to a local team. So it was just an amazing experience as well. And those 4 boys were older than me at the time.
How was the level? Because so at 16 you get dropped from the top team at Crossfire. So I'm trying to think, like, if you're not able to play at the best team at Crossfire, what makes you think that you could go and be successful? Just playing devil's advocate.
No, absolutely.
What makes you think that you could be successful in Spain?
Yeah, well, I went over not really thinking about trying to go over and play pro or anything like that. It was kind of more for like a development.
Right.
Because I kind of knew my limitations at the time. I think there was a part of me thinking, oh, maybe, it's more technical. Because people always say that don't really know football. Oh, over there they play. It doesn't really matter how big or small you are. But, like, people were smaller than me, and they were dominating me, and the level there was so much higher.
Why was it higher? Because everyone talks about, like, European soccer is higher. Like, what does it actually mean?
I think the biggest thing it comes down to is really an understanding of the game. I think in the United States there's not really a football culture, whereas in Spain people live it, they grow up with it. So even the players that didn't care about football, like at that school I would go to, they go play in between classes, and like some of those guys were like better than me. And I was thinking, I've dedicated my entire life, and these guys could not give less. They couldn't care less about, soccer at all. So that was a real eye-opener for me. Like, I went over as a 10, cut my socks, thought that was my game, came back right back.
Smashing
it really,
people.
Yeah, it completely changed my game. It was amazing. I also got an opportunity to play on, like, an adult or, like, a men's league team.
How important is that?
Oh, it was huge.
Why?
First of all, seeing all the different stories about where different players came from. The club was called Iberos. They still play to this day. And it was just a really interesting team. They would take different players. Some of them were free agents. Some of them had played for a long time, and then they just wanted to kind of play, casually. But we would go play like these professional or semi-professional teams that wanted friendlies. And the agents, or I wasn't an agency, but the soccer school I was with had a good relationship with them. So I was playing right back on this men's team. So I was just getting the ball and just giving it to these guys. But some of them had played at like the second team at Real Madrid, and then they, became an electrician, and they still wanted to kick around, and they were so good.
How important, because I've spoken about this a lot, like I was playing men's football at 16, and I was never the best technical player, but I think I read the game well and had a good IQ of the game. I think that's personally why I was successful as a footballer. And I think, like, for example, like, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but college soccer is like not youth football anymore. So for you getting exposed to men's football at 16, 17, like what did you learn at men's football that you didn't learn from youth football?
I think one of the biggest things that I took away that I carry into this day, and was probably one of my biggest strengths, is communication on the field. Seeing some of these guys that were very immobile, like they couldn't really run anymore, but just seeing the way they would direct the field, seeing the way they would, be able to delegate responsibilities onto other players, but something I'd never seen, playing in the United States and playing, local ECNL, RCL was what it was called at the time. So that was like one of the biggest takeaways, was seeing that, kind of like that maturity, seeing, I guess people call it like the dark arts of football, but like seeing people doing tactical fouls, seeing people take people down, little jersey pulls if somebody's making a run, stepping in front of a run, just like little intricacies that you don't really see in youth football, but like players have to compensate, at the higher level when you're playing against people that are more athletic.
So why isn't that happening in the US? Like, why did you have to go to Spain? Why couldn't you do that in America?
It's a good question. I think going back to the football culture, I think there's not really an infrastructure where players have that opportunity to play men's football. I mean, you could leave ECNL or MLS Next and go play UPSL, but I wouldn't really recommend that a lot of the time, because you're not really going to have the opportunity to have scouts see you for college soccer. There's no showcases for UPSL for younger players. So I guess there is an option. You could go do that or try to play Next Pro, but it's just a very different landscape. I think it would be great to one day be able to get to a point where players in MLS Next Pro or even ECNL could go on loan to play USL 2 or whatever the equivalent will be one day, to be able to play with guys that have played at higher levels and learn off them. And also, I think, being in a locker room as well with older players, you just learn so much about the game and just those kind of experiences, like them taking you around on trips and being the youngest one in a group. I mean, those are some of my best memories.
How to earn respect from others.
Yeah, definitely, kind of understanding locker room dynamics, because that can be the difference as well for why some players make it and others. I've seen players come to trials and do amazing, but they're they don't get along with the coach, they don't get along with the locker room, so it's not going to work. So I think that was another, learning lesson, was understanding, like, how do I fit into this ecosystem? How can I make a name for myself and the team?
So you're 16, 17 in Spain, and then what happens after your time in Spain? What happens?
I was considering going back
home or
going
Spain?
Back to Seattle. I was considering going back to Seattle or going back to Spain. I was kind of in the middle, and I was leaning more towards coming back to Seattle. So I think I eventually made the decision. I'm going to come back, go back to Crossfire, maybe go try out for Sounders. And then I went to the Notre Dame ID camp and tore my ACL there. So I tore my ACL. We were playing in that like all-star game that they do where you play against the older guys on the team. And I was trying to go in and like smash one of the older guys. And my leg got caught on the ground and tore my ACL.
How was that, like, mentally?
It was really rough. It was really, really tough, because I think at that point, people talk about identity in soccer and all this, and how people see themselves as a soccer player. But up until that point, I didn't really have any other hobbies. There was nothing else I really did besides play soccer, watch YouTube videos about soccer. So it was a big blow. And then I think I'd also just gotten back into high school in the United States. So I was trying to figure out who am I? Like, what am I doing? What's my plan? And then I came back 8 months and was training with the Crossfire Academy team, the DA team, and tore my meniscus the first session back. So that was another like 2 to 3 months I was out.
And how old are you here? You're a junior or senior in high school?
I was junior in high school. Yeah, junior in high school. So
it's like your prime recruiting period.
Prime recruiting period, yeah. So then by the time I had healed from my ACL, was coming into my senior year, did a month of college soccer just back into senior year of high school, and I had nowhere to play collegiately. I was emailing all these teams, but they were like, we don't know what to tell you. And I also was the age, as a 98, I was too old to be able to play in the DA. So I wasn't even eligible to be able to play in that league, even if I wanted to. So I would train with them and then play games with like the RCL team, which was the league below. So it was a really tough time. And I was even starting to apply to schools as just a student and like thinking about trying to walk on. But like my parents and people were kind of pushing me like, oh, you should try to maybe just do that and do soccer on the side, play on a club team.
So why didn't you give up? Why didn't you just say, I don't want to play soccer anymore?
Well, I think for me, that was never going to happen. Like soccer has always been just like the biggest part of my life. And so I always knew I was going to try to figure out a way to make it happen. I eventually committed to play soccer at University of Redlands, which is a great Division III school in the SCIAC Conference in California. But then I ended up decommitting.
Why?
To go to Raisa. Well, the opportunity came up to go to Raisa. The coach I talked about.
So you're getting injured and everything, and you're not playing. You're not getting a lot of game film.
Yeah.
How do Redlands find you? Or what? Why?
Yeah.
How did you get recruited?
Yeah. So I skipped a step there. So I was getting back in with Crossfire. It takes a couple months to get back from the ACL, and I went to an exact ID camp, which I'm not a big fan of, frankly. And I went there and I was like, wow, this was a big waste of money, to be honest. But there was a coach there, and he was from Redlands. He was the assistant at Redlands. I think I only played like 25 minutes at the camp, 30 minutes at the camp, and we flew down to San Bernardino for the whole thing. And I had sent him an email before, and he had seen enough and thought I was a good fit. So
he basically had taken a decision already on your highlight video, and he just wanted to confirm it at the camp.
I think that was the bottom line. I also had somebody from Crossfire that had reached out to him and
giving you a reference.
Giving me a reference. Bernie James, who was the coach at Crossfire, was massively helpful for me. Even though he was the DA coach, he was still trying to reach out to all these coaches for me at the Division I level and Division III level where he can. Chris Gores, who's at FC Naples now, who used to be at University of Washington, was doing the same thing for me as well. So I was like very lucky that I had these people in the corner for me, but it's kind of like having a blind reference to say, hey, like, can you take a look? But your senior year, you know how it is. It's tough to have those roster spots available.
So you get committed to Redlands, and then what happens because you go to England?
Yeah, I committed to Redlands. I think it was a lot of pressure from the person I was working with at the time.
So you had an agent?
Yeah, so I was working with a college consulting company, not really an agent. And then my family, I think, was like, oh, this is a really good offer, and it's a good school. And I just, kind of in my heart, I kind of didn't really want to do it, but I did it anyways.
Only option.
It was my only option, really. But then Stu, who I told you about earlier, who runs Dial Square in Seattle, told me about this program that he had seen, Raisa, said you should just take a look at it. And I took a look at it, and I was like, let's take a risk. Like, let's go for it. Kind of a similar feeling to what EduKick was like. And I'm very, very lucky that my family was able to support me and help me to do this, because it was definitely out there to like say no to a really good academic and soccer Division III to try to go overseas. But like once I saw that was a lot more aligned with what I wanted to do. Kind of like a fresh start type of feeling, different environment, and knowing the experience I had in Spain. Like,
because I'm assuming that you thought that you needed more development before you were ready to play college soccer, or because you were trying to pursue soccer because you're mad about soccer, and then you're kind of thinking like going to university is a safe option, like play, study, balance, like. But going to England's like, okay, I'm about that. I want to take a big decision, right?
Absolutely, that's what it was. And I think a lot of time you don't understand how good the level is outside of the United States. And I'd already seen that in Spain, and I was like, I want to throw myself into it again. And one of the things I really liked about Raisa and what they marketed it was like, there's a showcase team in the 18, and if you make it, you make it. If not, you're with everybody else. And this showcase team's going to go play against Hibernian, Middlesbrough, Sheffield Wednesday. You're going to have these opportunities. It's up to you. And to me, I was like, I want that. I want to be somewhere where I'm being challenged. I want to be somewhere where it's like, can I really test myself? And if I'm not good enough, I'll come back and, come back to the States, play Division III, whatever opportunity came up.
So how was your experience in England different to your experience in Spain?
It was really different for a lot of different reasons. I think one of the biggest things is I got so lucky that the coach at Raisa at the time was a guy named Rob Jones. Rob had played 20 years in England across Championship, League One, League Two, non-league. He started his professional career when he was 22, I believe. He was a PE teacher before that, playing non-league. And he was he's 6'7", center back, hard as nails. And right when I got there, I feel like he really had like a faith and a trust in me that I feel like I never really had with a coach. So straight in, he brought me in with one of the showcase teams like the first day. And I felt like I had never really had that experience. At Crossfire, I always kind of felt like I was, on the bottom half of the roster, or especially in those years after I got cut, I really was kind of like, I don't know if I'm good enough. But he was always like really in my corner, really giving me faith and trust. So like having that experience, being like thrown straight into it. Like I had landed, and like 4 days later, I was playing against Chorley. He put me in against like the reserves against Chorley, which is a National League team. And or at the time they were National League, and that was like a whirlwind of an experience.
Why is that? Like, for someone that's listening to this, like, yeah, you're playing the game in England, like it's going to be physical, you should be ready for that. Like, how do you describe it?
Well, it was a million miles an hour, so we would play on these tiny little turf fields, that were at the Leeds Beckett Headingley training ground, which is where Race used to be. And it was Trolley Reserve, so you have a combination of guys from the first team, the second team, maybe a couple from the younger ones as well. He subbed me in like the 45th minute. I think there was an injury. So I started the second half, and I don't really know like what kind of like led me to do it, but I just went in and I just like clattered somebody. And I think I was just trying to get used to the game. I didn't really mean to do it. And then like a fight broke out. Some guy is like, "I'm gonna snap your leg if you ever do that again." And I'm just like looking around, and then he hooked me like in the 75th minute. But he was like so happy that I did that, and like so proud of me. And like I thought like he hooked me. He's like, "I just wanted you to get a taste of it." And so like after that experience, I was hooked. I was like, I absolutely loved everything about England. And
so
yeah.
because people say to me a lot like, "Oh, English football it's much more physical, it's much more aggressive." But then there'll be people in America that come to people in England that come to America, and they're like, "Oh, football in the NCAA or in America is way more physical and aggressive." So like, you've obviously had both experiences. How would you describe English physical and aggression to American physical and aggression?
Yeah, I think the English physical and aggression is a lot more. There's definitely like an idea behind it, I guess you could say. It's like kind of a bit more of a mature aggression and physicality.
It's like smart. It's like second balls,
like smart,
hitting areas.
Second balls, yeah, like the diag. I got introduced to the diag, and the diag was a revolutionary thing. Because like in America, it wasn't really something I saw as much, but it's like when you get the ball to 6, like we're hitting those areas immediately, and I would do it, and that ended up being like a big part of my game when I played in the midfield. But also like little stuff like clipping somebody's heel after they pass the ball off, letting them know you're there. Little things like that you don't really get taught. I feel like growing up in America is probably because of the thing that you're playing against players at your own age. And I didn't really see that in Spain that much either. And but I think also like physicality wise, there's amazing athletes in America, like unbelievable athleticism. But I felt like in England, the athleticism wasn't quite at that level, at least for the level I was playing at. But it was just like people were just always getting into you. Like there was no time on the ball, whereas in college soccer, you still have a bit more time on the ball, but it's a bit more panicked.
I feel like in England, like people are less athletic, but I feel like they use their body better. Like it's how smart you use your arms, getting across people, letting them know you're there, like little things like off the ball. Whereas in the US, like NCAA, for example, it's a lot of end-to-end. It's like a basketball game. There's a lot of transitions, whereas in England, it's more second balls, more hitting areas. And I feel like, I feel like in the US, I don't know, like you go watch a youth football match, even MLS or ECNL, and it's like a long ball, but it's straight, it's down the middle. The wingers aren't really like trying to win the second ball and get into an area, whereas in England, like it would be, okay, we're going to hit a diag or we're going to hit the channel, and then like the wingers got to come, the strikers, it's more strategic.
Definitely more strategic.
Because I guess in England, you in a training, you might do a training, like from my experience growing up, you would do a training session on second balls and on playing long. Whereas in America, you would do a training session on playing out from the back, playing nice football, get to the game, and then you go long, so you haven't even practiced it.
Yeah, that's what I saw a lot in college soccer, was a lot of emphasis on trying to play out, and then the games come and it's an absolute, it's complete madness. But
So you go from Riasa, and then you go from Riasa to Gonzaga, right?
Yeah, so I was at Riasa. I was there for like a year and a half. COVID is like the reason I ended up leaving, but Rob actually was the one. We played in China, so we got this opportunity to go play in China at this like 10-day event. And we were playing all these different kinds of teams, and in the final, like he came up to me, and we were doing a lot of work to try to like get my Italian passport, and he was helping me out so much and trying to help me set up these different opportunities and really like making me believe I could do it. But he kind of just told me like, look, if you're not going to get the passport, like you should really go back to America. And he connected me with Tampa Bay Rowdies, with Neil Collins. So I think he called Neil, and there was like an open combine. Or wasn't it? Maybe it was like a closed combine. I went there and I felt like I did really well. And there was all these guys who had come from these Division 1s and Division 2s and thought I had a really good showing. And so after that, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to come back. Like, I think this is what I want to do. But it was hard because in England, we would get these opportunities in the showcase games to play against Sheffield Wednesday, Hibernian, like all the teams I mentioned earlier. And that was such a cool experience to see what the level was like and how far away you were.
Did you feel like going back to America would have been a step back?
At first, the time, I thought that Riasa would also do these different events where we would go to Slovakia, we'd go to Finland, and I was thinking maybe I could try to go play there. But I think it was when I went to Finland, I was like, I don't think I want to do this.
Why?
Well, we went to play. I'm forgetting on the name of the team that we went to play. But we played a second division team, so a Yukonin team, and then a team in Kakkonen, which is the third tier. 2 teams in the Kakkonen. And then we got to stay in the same hostel that a couple of the foreign players were staying in. And it was like an igloo. You know, you'd go outside, there was nobody on the streets. We were in Kemi, and, you know, they weren't getting paid very much money at all. And, like, there was kind of like an opportunity to go there towards my time at the end of England because the owner at Riasa owns a team in Kemi. And I just was like, I think I'd rather go to Gonzaga and try to roll the dice instead of do this. My parents also really wanted me to finish my education as well. And I'm really happy in hindsight that I did get my degree.
So how do you get recruited to play at Gonzaga?
Yeah, so...
Because people will be like, you're in England, you're in Finland.
Yeah.
How does Gonzaga... Obviously, you know, you grew up in Seattle, but, like, you're not going to showcase matches and camps. So, like, how do you get recruited to Gonzaga?
Yeah, so there was a boy who... the year before had gone to Boston University from Riasa, and we were pretty good friends, and he passed along the name of an agent. We started working together, and it just felt like all the options that were presented to me I didn't feel like were the right fit. And I think at that time I was starting to think maybe I don't deserve the level that I think I should be playing at in America, so maybe I need to be a bit more open-minded. So I was taking all the calls, doing all the application stuff, taking the next steps. But then I was like, let me like try to take this on my own and just see what happens. So I kind of like devised my own email template. A little bit of what I had done my senior year of high school, changed it a lot because that was kind of a template I'd got from somebody before. Got a bunch of like letter of recommendations. So I got my coach Rob to write me this letter of recommendation, put that into the email, and just kind of like tinkered around with all these different like elements of that. Started reaching out to a bunch of people I knew that were playing college and just trying to see, you know, how did you end up there? Do you mind passing along a phone number? So trying to go for that connection angle. And then I started like cold calling coaches, like office phones.
So you had an agent, but you decided to do it yourself?
Decided to do it myself.
Not to talk badly about the agent, but I think it's important because I think there's a lot of people working with agents maybe that feel like he's going to take care of everything for me. So like, what prompted you to be like, okay, I'm going to handle this myself?
I think the biggest thing, more than the schools that were being presented to me, was like the dialogue between us. Because it felt like I would text him, I wouldn't hear back for like a week, send a follow-up, still nothing. And then maybe it'd be like, hi, sorry, I've been so busy, no updates. Rather than if he was messaging me every day and it was like, this is the schools we've hit, these are the responses that we've got, good or bad, I'd be like, all right. You know, like this is what's going on, this is...
But was he saying like no updates because you're not good enough, or like we've got a D3 school, you should take it and you weren't happy, or like?
It felt like there was a list of schools that he already had a connection with, and I could be wrong, but it felt like there was a list of schools that he had a connection with, and he was pushing me there, and then he had done those initial reach outs and it was done. And I had told him, hey, there's a few schools, it'd be great if you could reach out to them, and I don't think he ever did. And now seeing what it's like on the other side, it's difficult. You know, there's some profiles that you get, and a player will say, hey, do you think you could reach out to Stanford? And it's like, well, you're playing Division III soccer, so that's not possible. But I felt like, you know, with my film and kind of the feedback I'd gotten, especially for some of the boys on the Raisa showcase team that had come from playing Division I, Division II, I was like, yeah, I'm going to try to do this on my own. And then eventually Chase Boone, who's now my agent with Invinium, he was playing in England at the time. He had just finished playing at Redlands, actually, which was a funny thing. So he had done 4 years at Redlands. He was an All-American, then gone to Riasa for a grad year. And then I had just decommitted from Redlands, so we would have missed each other. And then his best friend played at Gonzaga, Christo Michelson, who's the assistant there now. And he pretty much told Christo, hey, I got this guy. You know, here's all of his film. Christo liked it, sent it to Aaron Lewis, who was the assistant at the time. And then that's how we got connected. And they were kind of just using blind faith with Christo that I was good enough. Chase had also played for Aaron Lewis at the 23s of Timbers, where I ended up playing as well. And it kind of all just came together. They gave me a scholarship package. I wanted to be closer to home, and it just worked out. And I was like, let's give it a go and see. Yeah.
So that's like the biggest lesson from that, I think, is like using your network. Did you know, like, how did you network to get that opportunity? Because I might know someone who plays Division I soccer, and I don't want to message him in case he says no, or I'm a bit nervous, or I might talk to him and he'll think I'm joking. Like, how did you network yourself? How did that come about?
Yeah, it was an interesting experience, because I think you learn a bit more about how to go about those relationships. Like, you don't want to flat out be like, hey, bro, can you get me in contact with your coach, or can you make a group chat with the coach? You kind of have to know what your relationship was like with the guy. You know, is it someone that you know really, really well and you can be a bit more informal, or is it someone I don't really know? I want to like be a bit more respectful and just say, hey, is there any way you could connect me? Or a lot of the times the way I would approach it would be like, hey, like, I saw this was your journey. Do you mind like taking a call with me just so I can understand a bit more about what you did?
Build a conversation first.
Yeah, because I think just going straight into being like, hey, like, I saw you played at Harvard, like, let me, give me the coach's contact. It doesn't really come across well, and that's not really how you communicate with people. And the other thing about football too is that, sometimes, if you're the same position as somebody, or, that's your competition as well in a way. So I think you have to use it's very nuanced, and you kind of have to know the angle to approach it from. But I mean, connections are the game, really. I mean, that's what an agent is.
So you started Odyssey College Recruiting.
Yeah.
So you are a subject matter expert in how to get college soccer offers, right? That's what you do. You give advice. So for someone, well, first off, you worked with two different agents and you had a different experience, and then you kind of did it yourself.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to start a college soccer recruiting service?
Yeah. So I had those two experiences, working with the college consultant at a high school and then the college agent.
What's the difference between an agent and a consultant?
The agent was, or at least my understanding is that a consultant is somebody that kind of teaches you, this is how you email, this is what you do, here are all the different steps about how to play college, and then now it's up to you. I'm going to be in the background and guide you every single step of the way if you need it. I think that's very valuable, and I don't think that's something that's like wrong, but it's not really as hands-on as an agent, whereas an agent's like, I'm taking your profile, I'm going to send it to here, here, and here, let you know what they say back in response. I'd had those two experiences. I signed at Flower City, was making very, very little money. There's no CBAs in NISA, or when NISA existed. So I was like, I got to get another job. Reached out to a very well-known college recruiting company on social media, or not on social media, it was actually through a connection, a teammate who was playing at Richmond Kickers, or a former teammate who was now playing at Richmond Kickers. And so he put me in touch with the guy, and I started working under him and, having meetings with families, working with players. And ultimately, I just really didn't feel like we were in alignment with what we wanted, the way I saw working with families versus the way he saw working with families, the way I saw college recruiting versus the way he saw it. I left, worked with another one, kind of had the reaction that I was going to have a lot of, like they said, I was going to be the director of everything. It was kind of like my show to run, and they're going to be in the background. But then they like slapped like a $12,000 fee on for everybody, regardless of year, regardless of what they wanted. Like, it was $12,000 or nothing.
To have the service?
To have the service. And
wow.
Look, like, I'm sure there are, like, you could build that package up for somebody and make that worth the money. But I just didn't feel like it was. So then that relationship went sour, and then there was just something in my contract with them where I couldn't work for 3 months after. That's when I was in Bali, where I met Santos. I had 3 months just to kind of think, like, what am I going to do? I just finished playing the NPL, which was like semi-pro. And I was like, I really don't know, like, what the future looks like. And then I had a couple families reach out to me and say, hey, I heard you left. We're going to discontinue. And, like, we just want to work with you. So I was like, I'll just, like, help you out on the side. You don't need to pay me. But they're like, no, we'll just pay you, like, Venmo you for your time. And, doing it my way, being able to work with the players kind of in the way that I really felt like would help them.
But because to me, I'm thinking that college recruiting is easy. All you need to do is you need to have a call with the family, you need to understand what they want, you need to make the video, and then you need to market the profile.
Yeah.
So why did you have, because it's interesting, because I think it's so true, like different agents or agencies or services, everyone has their own like thing or their own method. Mine's probably different to yours is different to the other one. Like, why were you, not to get specific, but like, what do you want to achieve as a goal for Odyssey? Like, what's, like, obviously you want to get players to college, but like, what makes you different from other agencies?
It's a really good question. I think the biggest thing for me is like a holistic approach. I think that everybody has such a unique story. Like, I've had such a unique way, you've had such a unique way of getting to where you are now, especially with college soccer. And I felt like for the past the past two agencies or college recruiting companies I was working with, it was very much like a cookie cutter for everybody. And I feel like there's a lot more nuance, and that has to be customized to the player specifically. What kind of school do they want to go to? Do they want to go to a bigger, small school? is soccer like their everything? They want to take this pro, or are they just trying to do it? Like I've even had players that say, I want to play soccer and basketball at a school. And you're going to approach that completely differently than somebody that says, I want to play D1 at all costs. So that was kind of like the main thing, is like I wanted to make it very, very customized. I wanted to make it very, very inclusive to everybody. I think another thing that's like a trickier subject is like price. There's so many costs now in America with football. And obviously, you know, college recruiting it's a skill, and it's a very difficult thing to do from our end. But I felt like at the past 2 places I'd worked, like the amount of money it was costing for what I felt like the product was providing didn't add up. So I wanted to make sure there was something at every single level, at every single income level that a family could hit if they wanted to. And obviously, you know, you don't pay $30 and get a highlight video and get 24/7 access, but at least for someone that was like, you know, really, really wanted to do it, but maybe they couldn't afford it, like at least for them to have a person that could take them through the process.
How do you make sure, because that's something that I'm very conscious of when you're trying to like work with more players and work with a higher level of player, and when you're trying to like grow your agency, how do you ensure that you make sure every player feels loved?
Well, it kind of goes back to what we talked about when I was working with the one when I was playing in England was, you know, I would not hear back for 10 days at a time, 15 days at a time. And so the biggest thing for me is talking to these players every single day and getting to know them and their families and what they want, making sure that we have a synchronicity about what we're looking to do. You know, for example, it's like if I'm an agent for a player, if I go out and get them 10 NAIA offers, but their goal is to play Division II in South Carolina, that doesn't do them any good. So making sure that there's a real understanding of what they want and what I can provide, and being honest with them about what the reality is as well. But also making sure I hear them and I see what they're looking to do, and, you know, communicating everything very transparently as well about what I'm hearing from coaches as well from the agent side.
How do you deal with a player that just says they want to play D1 but you don't think they're at the level?
I have a lot of grace for them because that was me. And I think that's why I have a lot of grace for the college consultant I worked with at the time. It was like, here's this kid. He's not playing academy. He's playing on the second team of Crossfire. He's D1 or bust. And, you know, if I had a player that came to me now, I would have to lower their expectations a little bit. Look, you know, your profile, or like the way that you come across to coaches right now, it's not a Division I player. The way I would do it now, I'd say, hey, look, there's other ways to do it, though. You could go overseas. You could go play Select Generation Dubai in Spain. You could go junior college. You could go NAIA. So rather than taking the angle that I felt like was kind of given to me in high school, which was like, it's never going to happen. I remember overhearing a phone call between my mom and the college consultant. And this college consultant is a guy I've talked to now. And, you know, we've talked, and he's a good person. But I remember hearing him tell my mom, there's no way Angelo will ever play Division I. Like, there's no chance. And I was like, oh, I'm going to prove him wrong. Like, that's, you know, that's
But
crazy.
I think this is important because I think college soccer has changed a lot, because it used to kind of be like you go Division I for 4 years, but now I say to a lot of players, like, you are not ready to play Division I.
Yeah.
But you could be ready if you take the right decisions. If you go somewhere, prove yourself and transfer. Like, this is all about increments. Like, players now play Division I for 1 year or 2 years. Like, they're all coming in. You rarely see a player that's going to play Division I for 4 years now.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's exactly what I did without knowing it. Is I went to England, I developed for 2 years, and I came into Gonzaga. I was older, I was stronger, I was more athletic, I was much better player. But I also had learned a lot, like emotionally. I was a lot more mature. I was the captain in my first year and for the rest of my time there. And it's like, if I went in when I was 19, you know, I might have been redshirted. I might have got a double red shirt. You know, who knows? But
what's your biggest challenge as an agent?
I think for me, balancing it with professional soccer, I'm very, very conscious about how many players I take on, because I want to make sure that every player I take on, I can give them everything. Like, I can be 100% committed to working with them. And then on the call as well, like making sure, like the initial call, is I'm being 100% honest about what I actually think, and not being like telling them anything just to get them on board, which is another thing I felt like in the past. It was what I was noticing with other agencies. So that part is probably the biggest thing, is like making sure that I can really, really help them, like know in my heart that I can actually help them. I think the other thing too is just that college soccer is changing so much, and that sometimes it is unpredictable. Like, there have been players I've taken on where I've said, hey, you know, I really do think D1 could be a possibility. You know, I felt really comfortable telling them that. And then when it gets across to the coaches, they think, oh, I don't think so. So that can be something sometimes that can be tough. But I've been really, really blessed that all the players I've taken on board, you know, we have a 100% success rate. And I really do feel like every player I've worked with so far would be willing to, say positive things. Obviously, there's always going to be, maybe in the future it'll change because you grow and get bigger. But
what's your biggest piece of advice for picking an agent? Like I'm 16.
Mm-hmm.
I need an agent. I know I need an agent or a consultant or someone to help me go and play college soccer, but I'm not sure what one I should pick and what I should be looking for. What should you pick?
I think that initial phone call is really important. I think having questions about like where have you placed players in the past, what's your background as well, do you have specific areas that you work like closest with. I think hearing from other players that have worked with that agent can be a good experience as well. I think that was something I never did, for those two that I picked as a player. I mean, I think the first college consultant I worked with would be kind of an exception because he had some great players and I was a very unique case. But I think for the second one, I didn't really, I had that one player I spoke to, but I knew him personally. I think if I did a little bit more research and work to see if that was really the right fit, that could have helped me. But I think having people that have actually done it is an important thing to look at. And I know this is an interesting one because there are, you see it in coaches. Some people are like, oh, he never played professionally, but now he's a professional coach and he's, you don't really get that same thing. But I think for the college recruiting stuff, I really think that it's important that you go with somebody that's been through it themselves. They've played college soccer. They've experienced it. They know coaches firsthand from that. I think that's a big thing to look out for because sometimes, from my experience, I've seen players that have, agents or agencies made by people that are trying to capitalize on a gap in the market.
What's a red flag in an agent that I should be wary of?
Definitely just everything that you say, they're immediately agreeing with. They're telling you everything that you want to hear. I think that's normally a big red flag because I'd say the majority of the conversations that I have to, not stunt expectations, but be really, really honest with them about
challenge the player.
Yeah, challenge them a little about where college soccer is at now. Maybe 5-6 years ago, because you're starting at MLS Next, you'd be a shoo-in to Division I, but that's not the case anymore. So I think that if they're not challenging you, if it seems like almost too good to be true, I would be a little bit wary of that.
Do I have to play MLS Next to play Division I?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
Youth soccer in America has a lot of flaws. I think that when the DA got dissolved, the talent pool got stretched out a lot. So you see clubs like Crossfire that should be in MLS Next if that's supposed to be the highest level, but they're playing ECNL. So now, just because you're playing MLS Next doesn't automatically mean that you can play Division I, and ECNL doesn't mean that you can't play D1, but it doesn't mean that it's a shoo-in as well. So I think that there's a lot more leagues that are popping up. I mean, you got USL Academy now, which is also like a weird kind of gray area because you got guys training with the first team at these USL Championship teams, but then they're playing UPSL. So it's like, how do you get seen? So absolutely, if you're playing outside of MLS Next, it doesn't mean that you can't play Division I, but you just have to understand the way these coaches think, which is one of the upsides of having an agent or a consultant.
What's the biggest piece of advice for how to get started, how to play college soccer? Like, you're just starting the process, you're like, okay, I want to play college soccer. What's the first step? What do I need to do?
First step for me is getting a professional highlight video. I think that's the low-hanging fruit, is that you need to have a really good highlight video, not one that you put together on your phone and the screen recording thing comes down, because I see like all of those all the time. But getting a professional highlight video done, investing $100, into getting someone to do that for you, professional graphics, get a resume done either by somebody or yourself. Take the time to make it look really professional. Because that's the type of thing the coaches, that's what gets you in the door with the coaches most of the time. The second thing, and I know you only asked for one, but I think something that comes along with that is immediately going to your connections. Immediately leveraging.
How do I know who my connections are? Because I think that's quite an overwhelming statement. Like, go to your connections. I'm like, who is my, like, how do you figure out who your connections and your network is?
Yeah. So if you play club soccer, the people at the club, so technical director, your current coach, your former coach, scheduling a meeting with the highest director that you can find, introducing yourself, telling them about what your goal is to play collegiately. Looking in your family, is there anybody that's played college soccer? Is there anybody that's connected to soccer? Your friends, parents, anybody that plays soccer. For me, I would grow up and play a lot of pickup soccer, the street soccer, but also I would go to like local parks and play with, people that would play like six-a-side, winner stays on. And there were so many people I met through that experience as well, people that ran, NPSL clubs, people that had played Serie B in Italy, and those were people that were actually really, really pivotal in my career, that would kind of like open my eyes or lead me open to different opportunities. So that's another example, is just people that you meet through the game.
What's the difference between college soccer and professional soccer in terms of getting recruited? Because my biggest piece of advice is that you could probably go and play college without an agent. I don't think that you need to have an agent. I think you need to have a mentor, and you need to have someone to ask questions and give you feedback, because I think there's a lot of grey area, and I think a lot of players when they're 16, 17 are not lazy, but they're not educated, and they need someone to educate them. But to go pro, in my opinion, you need an agent.
Yeah.
What's the difference between getting recruited to play college and getting recruited to play at the pro level? How is it different?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. To play college, you don't need an agent, internationally or domestically. But having somebody in your corner, I think, helps a lot. You could do it on your own, but it helps a lot. Professionally, you absolutely need an agent. The reason why is I think the barrier of entry is a little bit different, in that there's so much more going on behind the scenes that you don't really see, in terms of which agents have certain connections with certain coaches. Is there an agent that works directly with the GM of a certain club? I think those are the sort of things that people don't see. So I think an agent is absolutely pivotal as well. Also, say a club does want to sign you, making sure that you get your fair amount. An agent working on your behalf is so much more beneficial. I've done it where I've negotiated my own contract and it did not work out very well. So I think an agent is absolutely pivotal if you're going to play professionally. How you find the right agent is very similar to how you go about the college agent path. Asking questions. Are they telling you you're going to go play in the Premier League? Because I've talked to some of them that have told me that I can, which is kind of insane to tell somebody that out of Gonzaga. So if it sounds like too good to be true, that's when you need to be a little bit wary.
How do I know if I'm good enough to be a professional footballer?
It's a great question. I think there's no way to really know for sure. I think that you can lean on your connections, your college coach. You can ask people, but some of them might say you are, and some of them might say you're not.
Football's a game of opinions. Yeah.
It's a game of opinions, definitely. I mean, there's guys I played with where they got cut from my college team, and then they get drafted to go play. So it is a game of opinions. I think that if you really want to find out, you should go to a professional soccer combine and, put yourself amongst a bunch of other guys that are trying to figure out if they're good enough to play, because I did 2 of them when I left Gonzaga, and that was a real eye-opener for me to see where other players are coming from, what the level is, and to play in front of professional coaches and see what they think of you. So I think that's a great first step, talking to agents, kind of getting their opinion to see where they think you'll land. LinkedIn is another great tool.
I saw your video yesterday about LinkedIn's a cheat code. Tell me about that.
LinkedIn is an absolute cheat code for college recruiting and for professional soccer. So, from my own experience, when I finished my season at Flower City Union, we had won the league, and I was getting all these open combine offers from the agent I was working with at the time. And I was like, what are you talking about? I just won the league. Surely I could get a direct contract. And he was like, no, this is the way it is coming out of NISA. So I started using LinkedIn. I started DMing a bunch of different agents. I came across one who was pretty honest with me about his assessment of me and told me about going to play NPL in Australia. And I was a little hesitant at first, but I ended up doing it, and it was a big part of my journey. Was it the right move? Looking back now, I'm happy with where I am now. But that relationship all came from posting on LinkedIn, posting my highlight video. And I had several agents contact me after that, and a few clubs as well.
I always tell the players, you need to be creative with how you're reaching out to coaches. Email, great, okay.
Yeah.
But I always tell players, go on Instagram, go on the roster, find someone that's in your hometown or your city, or someone, and DM him, hey, I know Mikey, here's my video, do you think I could play at your school? Or go on LinkedIn, because all the coaches are on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Being creative with ways.
That's one of the first things I do with all my players. I actually have a crazy story with LinkedIn that happened 2 weeks ago. There was a player that was working at one of the other agencies that I mentioned before that I was working at. They decided to leave, came to me, Division 1 or nothing. He had every Division 2 or 3 offer you could think of, but nobody Division 1 would bite. Worked with him for a few months. It was kind of the same type of conversations that you hear when coaches are stalling. Oh, you're on our plans, keep us updated, blah, blah, blah. And, we did a LinkedIn post. I reposted it, gave my thoughts about him as a player. Within 30 minutes, Division I coach reached out. They got on a phone call. The next day he offered.
Love that.
All through LinkedIn.
Love
And,
that.
you know, it was a school that we had just missed, you know, going through the process. It was a school that I didn't really think of. And just through that, you get that offer, and that completely changes. As you know, like once you get one offer, that's when all of them start trickling in, is because you have to be honest about coaches about what your deadlines are. And so now he's at a point where he's got 4 Division I offers because of that LinkedIn post.
Just lastly, Angelo, I want to ask you, because I feel like you've been very successful in your journey, and you've had a lot of experiences, you've met a lot of people, and I feel like you're a role model for a lot of players that can lean on how to be successful in football. You've obviously built your college recruiting service, you've obviously been a professional, you've obviously had a lot of ups and downs, you played internationally. What would you say, not just in football but in life, has been kind of like your main takeaway over the last 8 or 9 years? Like, what would you say you've learned the most about life through your journey?
That's a great question. I think the biggest takeaway has really been, like, growing up, I was a big goal setter. I'd always have all these goals laid out. This is what I'm going to do by this age. This is what I'm going to do at this time. This is the leagues I'm going to play in, kind of like what we talked about earlier. But I think, like, the ride that football takes you on, it can't be scripted. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what injury is going to happen, no matter how much prehab and foam rolling you do. You don't know what club is going to be interested in you. You can never guess what's going to happen. So I think just being open and just allowing whatever experiences happen, obviously taking care of everything that you can, taking care of your training if your goal is to be a pro, you know, or a college player, doing everything you can to be the best player and person that you can be, but then not really like attaching yourself too much to what that final goal is. Or even if you do have that final goal, being open to however it is that you get there.
You think the reward is the goal, but the reward is the process.
Yeah, that would be a better way of saying it.
know?
I think because I think that a lot of players I work with now are like so, you know, they have their hands so tight about what they want and the way it's supposed to happen. But like from my journey, that's not been the case at all.
And just lastly, final question, because I think this is important too for players. I like working personally. I like working with players that ask lots of questions, but good questions. Ask feedback, have good energy. Ask me how my day is before texting me, "Hey Sam, what offers have you got?" You know, like, "Sam, what's going on? Like, how's your life? Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
showing interest before saying, "Hey, what's on the table?" I like working with players that are proactive. I like working with players that have good energy, that communicate well. So for a player that wants to work with an agent and wants to get the most out of the agent and wants to have a good service, because it's a two-way relationship at the end of the day, what do you like about players that work with you?
That's a great question. Very similar to you. I think proactive players would be the biggest thing. So there's the approach where you sit back and don't do anything, and you let the agent do, you know, what they want to do, and that's fine. But I really love when players say, "Hey, I just played a friendly, you know, against this team. I think I'm going to try to reach out to this guy that I played USL2 with on the other team and get the phone number and do that." And it's like, well, that's amazing because I'm doing this from my side. And then a lot of the times that will overlap where I know that coach, or the player will start off an introduction with, "Hey, I'm working with Angelo," and they know me because I sent a player earlier. So I think being proactive is the biggest thing. And I think, you know, being enthusiastic about the process and kind of, you know, what we talked about a little bit is like just being open to whatever comes, because I can't guarantee you I get you this school. I can't guarantee you I'll get you this division. I tell all the players that, even if they're coming from the player that was in the A-League that I just, you know, placed at Denver. I told him, like, I don't know for sure. I think I can place you to play Division I, but I can't ever guarantee that. And he was like, great, like, let's just see what happens. So I think players that are open to whatever is to come and like fully committed to like the process to what you say. So yeah, I think that would probably be what I would say. Yeah.
Guys, that was an amazing episode. Angelo, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it.
That was good.
Yeah.
We'll tag Angelo's Instagram and also his recruiting service, Odyssey. If you have anything that you learn, any questions, I'm sure his DMs are open. Shoot him a message.
DMs are open, yeah.
But no, Angelo, thank you so much.
No,
man.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Great chatting with you. Yeah.